A black waitress spent her last money to help an old woman reach home. The next morning, a Korean Mafia boss showed up with a Lamborghini and changed her life forever. The rain came down like bullets against the windshield of the last bus heading east through Los Angeles. Jennifer Moss pressed her forehead against the cold glass, watching the city blur into streaks of neon and shadow. Her feet ached from a double shift at Rosie's Diner, 10 hours of carrying trays, forcing smiles, and pretending she didn't notice when customers left prayer cards instead of tips. Her uniform stuck to her skin, damp with rain and sweat. The envelope in her purse felt lighter than it should, $340 in tips from 2 days' work. Not enough. Never enough. She had exactly $1,847 in her bank account. Rent was $200. Electric was due. Her mother's medication cost $400 a month, and insurance covered exactly nothing useful. Jennifer did the math constantly, compulsively, like if she calculated it enough times, the numbers would magically change. They never did. At 26, she'd already mastered the art of making poverty look dignified. Clean uniforms, perfect hair, smile that never faltered. No one needed to know she sometimes chose between eating and bus fare. The bus lurched to a stop at Wilshire in Vermont. Through the rain-soaked window, Jennifer saw an old woman standing at the shelter, soaked through despite the thin plastic poncho she wore. Korean, probably in her 70s, with silver hair plastered to her face and hands that shook as she dug through a small purse. The bus driver, a heavy-set man named Curtis, who Jennifer recognized from her regular route, called out, "You getting on or not, ma'am? I got a schedule." The old woman's face crumpled with confusion and embarrassment. She held up a handful of coins, saying something in Korean that Jennifer couldn't understand but recognized universally. "I don't have enough." Curtis sighed, already reaching for the door lever. "Can't ride for free, ma'am. Sorry, try the next bus." Jennifer watched the woman's shoulders slump in defeat, rain streaming down her face like tears, and something inside her chest cracked open. "Wait!" Jennifer stood, gripping the pole for balance as the bus swayed. "I'll cover her fare." She made her way to the front, pulling out her own wallet. Curtis gave her a look, the one that said, "You sure about that?" But Jennifer was already swiping her card. $1.75, such a small amount, such an enormous decision. That was bus fare tomorrow. That was the difference between eating lunch or going hungry. But the old woman was crying now, and Jennifer's mother had taught her that dignity mattered more than dollars. "Thank you, sweetie," Curtis said softly, printing the transfer. "You're good people." Jennifer didn't feel good. She felt reckless and stupid, and one emergency away from complete disaster. But she smiled anyway, then turned to the old woman who was climbing aboard, still apologizing in Korean. "It's okay," Jennifer said gently, guiding her to a seat. "Please, sit here. You're soaking wet." The old woman grabbed Jennifer's hands, her grip surprisingly strong, and spoke rapidly in Korean. Jennifer caught the word "감사합니다," thank you, from the Korean customers at the diner. She shook her head, trying to communicate across the language barrier. "It's nothing. Really. Just stay warm." But the woman wouldn't let go. She pulled out a small piece of paper and a pen from her purse, writing something with shaking hands before pressing it into Jennifer's palm. Then she bowed deeply, formally, and Jennifer felt the weight of that gesture in her bones. The old woman got off 3 stops later, at a nice neighborhood Jennifer had only seen from bus windows. Before she disappeared into the rain, she turned back one last time, meeting Jennifer's eyes through the glass. Something passed between them. Recognition, gratitude, something Jennifer couldn't name. Then she was gone, swallowed by the storm. Jennifer looked down at the paper in her hand, a phone number written in careful script, and beneath it, Korean characters she couldn't read. She folded it carefully and tucked it into her pocket, already dismissing it. Old woman, probably confused, didn't mean anything by it. But as the bus pulled away, Jennifer felt something shift in the air, like the moment before lightning strikes, like fate taking a breath before changing everything. Jennifer's apartment was a 4th-floor walk-up in mid-city, the kind of building where the elevator had been broken for 3 years and nobody expected it to be fixed. She climbed the stairs slowly, feet screaming with each step, and let herself into the studio she shared with too many memories and not enough space. The place was clean. She refused to let poverty look like failure, but sparse. A futon that doubled as couch and bed, a kitchenette with 2 working burners, walls covered in her mother's paintings, the only inheritance Jennifer had kept. She peeled off her wet uniform and stood under a lukewarm shower, letting the water wash away the day. Her mind drifted to the old woman, to the $1.75 that now meant she'd be walking part of her route tomorrow, to the phone number burning a hole in her pocket. She wondered if she'd done something stupid, wondered if kindness was a luxury she couldn't afford, decided it didn't matter. She'd made her choice. Sleep came hard, troubled by dreams of rain and numbers that wouldn't add up, and her mother's voice saying, "Baby, you got to take care of yourself first. Can't pour from an empty cup." But Jennifer had been pouring from empty for so long, she didn't know how else to live. Morning came gray and grudging. Jennifer woke at 5:30 a.m., made instant coffee in the microwave, and pulled on her spare uniform, the one with the small stain on the collar she'd tried and failed to remove. She applied makeup with the precision of armor, transforming exhaustion into something presentable. By 6:15, she was out the door, starting the walk that would save her $1.75, but cost her an extra 40 minutes she didn't have. The morning shift at Rosie's Diner started at 7 sharp. Jennifer arrived at 6:50, already sweating despite the cool morning air. The diner was a relic from the 1950s. Red vinyl booths, checkered floors, a jukebox that only played Motown. It sat on the corner of Crenshaw and Olympic, serving breakfast to bus drivers, nurses getting off night shifts, and old men who'd been coming for 30 years. Jennifer loved it with the fierce devotion reserved for things that barely pay you enough to survive. "You're late," Rosie called from behind the counter. She was a black woman in her 60s, built like she could still throw someone out personally, with a voice that could cut steel. But her eyes were kind when they landed on Jennifer. "And you look terrible. You walk here?" "Bus fare," Jennifer said simply, tying her apron. Rosie knew. Everyone who worked there knew. They were all dancing the same desperate dance, just different steps. "I'm fine. Who's in my section?" She scanned the diner, the usual crowd, plus a few new faces. Then her eyes snagged on the man in booth 7. He hadn't been there when she walked in. Must have arrived in the 30 seconds she'd been in the back. He was Korean, young, late 20s maybe, and so beautiful it was almost offensive. Sharp jawline, dark eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Black hair styled with the kind of careless perfection that cost money. He wore a suit that screamed bespoke tailoring, midnight blue with subtle pinstripes, no tie, top button undone to reveal a sliver of collarbone. His hands, long-fingered, elegant, rested on the table, and Jennifer noticed the ring on his right hand. Heavy gold engraved with characters she couldn't read. Everything about him screamed wrong place. Men like him didn't eat at Rosie's. They had private chefs and reservation-only restaurants. Jennifer grabbed her order pad and approached with her customer service smile firmly in place. "Good morning. Coffee to start?" His eyes lifted to meet hers and something electric shot down her spine. This close, she could see the details. The small scar through his left eyebrow, the intensity in his gaze that made her feel simultaneously seen and dissected. "Coffee, black." His English was perfect, barely accented, but something in the cadence marked it as learned rather than native. "And the breakfast special, scrambled eggs, bacon, wheat toast? Coming right up." Jennifer scribbled the order, hyper-aware of his eyes tracking her movements. When she returned with coffee, he was on his phone, speaking rapid Korean in a voice that dropped 20 degrees colder than when he'd addressed her. She set the cup down quietly, not wanting to interrupt, but he immediately switched to English. "Thank you." Then as she turned to leave, "What's your name?" She faced him again, smile professional. "Jennifer. And you?" It was forward, unprofessional even, but something about his directness invited the same in return. "Park Bogim." He said it like she should recognize it. When she clearly didn't, something flickered in his expression. Surprise? Amusement? "You've worked here long. 3 years. Can I get you anything else right now?" She needed to move, to break whatever strange tension was building between them. But Bogim just studied her with those intense eyes, like he was solving an equation only he could see. "No. Thank you, Jennifer." The way he said her name, careful, deliberate, made it sound different, important. She fled to the kitchen, pulse racing for reasons she refused to examine. "Girl, who is that fine specimen in booth 7? Keisha, her co-worker and closest friend at the diner, appeared at her elbow with wide eyes. And why does he keep staring at you like you're the daily special? I don't know, some businessman, probably lost. Jennifer focused on loading her tray with orders for other tables, but she felt Bogim's gaze on her back, heavy and assessing, for her entire shift. He stayed for 2 hours, nursing coffee and picking at food he barely touched, working on a laptop that probably cost more than Jennifer's entire life. And the whole time, his attention kept drifting back to her. When he finally stood to leave, Jennifer was refilling coffee for a regular when she felt him approach. He placed a $100 bill on the counter for a $12 breakfast. The rest is for you, he said when Jennifer tried to make change. No, I can't. You can. His voice was firm, allowing no argument. Consider it appreciation for excellent service. Then he was gone, sliding into the back of a black sedan that had been idling outside. Through the window, Jennifer watched him drive away, then looked down at the money in her hand. $88, more than she'd made in tips all yesterday. Jennifer! Rosie's voice cut through her shock. You got a visitor. Jennifer turned to find a young man at the door, Korean, in a black suit and earpiece that screamed security. He approached with a small bow. Miss Jennifer Moss? How did he know her last name? She'd only given Bogim her first name. Fear prickled down her spine. Yes. Mr. Park asked me to give you this. He held out a small card. He wishes to speak with you, at your convenience. The card was heavy stock, cream-colored, with a phone number embossed in gold. No name, no context, just a number. Jennifer stared at it, mind racing. What does he want to talk about? That is between you and Mr. Park. The man bowed again, then left as silently as he'd arrived. Jennifer looked at the card, then at the $100 bill still in her hand, then at Keisha, who was watching the whole exchange with her mouth hanging open. Girl, Keisha breathed, what did you do? Because that man either wants to marry you or murder you, and I genuinely can't tell which. I don't know, Jennifer whispered, but even as she said it, pieces clicked together in her mind. The old woman last night, the paper with a phone number, the way Bogim had looked at her, not with lust or casual interest, but with something deeper. Recognition. Like he'd been looking for her specifically. Her hand went to her uniform pocket, where she'd transferred the old woman's note. She pulled it out with shaking fingers. The number on the worn paper matched exactly the number on Bogim's card. Oh shit, Jennifer said softly. I think I helped his mother. The rest of Jennifer's shift passed in a blur. She mechanically took orders, served food, cleared tables, all while her mind spun in circles. Every time she touched the card in her pocket, questions multiplied. Why had Bogim come to the diner? How had he found her? What did he want? The $100 tip sat heavy in her apron, feeling less like generosity and more like obligation. Like the first move in a game she didn't know she was playing. You calling that number? Keisha asked during their break. Both of them huddled in the alley behind the diner. Splitting a cigarette Jennifer didn't smoke but held anyway. I don't know. It feels weird, like I'm being tracked or something. Or, Keisha countered, a hot rich man wants to properly thank you for helping his mama. Girl, some of us pray for problems like that. You don't understand. Men like that don't just show up at diners. Don't just leave $100 tips for $12 breakfasts. Something's off. Your something's off is my fairy tale. But go off. Keisha took the cigarette back, studying Jennifer with shrewd eyes. Real talk, though. You scared of what he wants or scared of what you want? The question hit too close to bone. Because yes, Jennifer was scared. Scared of the way her pulse had raced when Bogim looked at her. Scared of the dangerous beauty in his face, the controlled power in his movements. Scared of wanting something that felt so far outside her reach, it might as well be on another planet. Men like Park Bogim didn't happen to women like Jennifer Moss, and when they did, it ended in heartbreak. I'm not calling, Jennifer decided, stubbing out the cigarette. I did a nice thing. He said thank you. That's the end of it. But even as she said the words, she knew they were a lie, because Park Bogim had looked at her like she was the beginning of something, not the end. And that terrified her more than anything. Jennifer made it through the rest of her shift without incident, collected her tips, $67 including Bogim's 100, and clocked out at 3 p.m. She had exactly 3 hours before her evening shift at the coffee shop in Silver Lake, which meant 90 minutes of travel time on 2 buses and 30 minutes to grab food and change clothes. This was her life. 2 jobs, no days off, constant motion to stay just barely ahead of drowning. The bus ride home was uneventful. Jennifer found a seat by the window, pulled out her phone, and stared at the dating app she downloaded 6 months ago, but never actually used. Beautiful people and carefully curated photos, all promising connection and chemistry and happily ever after. She'd written a profile, 26, ambitious, loves classic movies and lazy Sundays, that made her life sound less like desperation and more like choice. She'd swiped through exactly 4 profiles before deleting the app. Who had time for dating when survival was a full-time job? But now she re-downloaded it, fingers moving before her brain could catch up. And there, like fate laughing at her, was Park Bo-gim's face staring back from her screen. Not his profile? God, no, men like him didn't use dating apps, but a news article. Park Bo-gim, 28, named CEO of Park Industries following father's death. She clicked through with trembling hands. Park Industries, import-export on paper, but the article hinted at rumors and allegations that never quite stuck. A photograph showed Bo-gim at some gala, devastating in a tuxedo, surrounded by politicians and celebrities. Another showed him leaving a courthouse, face carved from stone, while the headline speculated about organized crime connections and ongoing investigations. Jennifer's blood ran cold. Organized crime. Korean Mafia, if the Reddit threads she fell down were accurate. The Jopak. Operating in LA for decades, controlling everything from gambling to protection to God knew what else. And Park Bo-gim wasn't just connected, he ran the whole operation, had taken over when his father was murdered 3 years ago, had consolidated power with ruthless efficiency, was feared and respected in equal measure. She clicked back to the article about his mother. Park Hyun-ju, 73, widow of the legendary Park Sung-ho, who'd built the empire from nothing. She lived in a fortified mansion in Hancock Park, surrounded by security, rarely seen in public, except apparently when she somehow ended up alone at a bus stop in the rain, depending on the kindness of strangers. Jennifer stared at the photo of the elegant older woman at some charity event, dripping in pearls and designer clothes, and tried to reconcile it with the frightened, soaked figure she'd helped last night. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Her heart stopped, then started again double time. She answered without thinking. Hello, Miss Jennifer Moss? A woman's voice, Korean accented, professional. This is calling on behalf of Park Bo-gim. He wishes to extend an invitation to dinner tonight to properly thank you for your assistance to his mother. I'm working tonight. I can't. Mr. Park is prepared to compensate you for any lost wages. A car will collect you from your apartment at 7 p.m. Please dress comfortably. Wait, I didn't agree to. But the line was already dead. Jennifer stared at her phone, pulse thundering. How did they have her number? Her address? She'd given neither to Bo-gim, which meant he'd looked her up, investigated her, knew exactly who and where she was. The realization should have terrified her. Instead, it sent a thrill down her spine that she absolutely refused to acknowledge. She called the coffee shop. Miguel, it's Jen. I'm so sorry, but I have a family emergency. I can't make tonight's shift. The lie tasted bitter, but less bitter than admitting the truth. A criminal kingpin wanted to buy her dinner, and she was saying yes. Miguel, bless him, just sighed. You okay, Jen? Yeah, I'll make it up, I promise. I'll take the weekend double. Just be safe, mija. He hung up, and Jennifer was left staring at her closet with growing panic. Dress comfortably. What did that mean? What did one wear to dinner with the Korean Mafia? She had exactly 3 outfits that weren't work uniforms. Jeans and a nice top, a sundress she'd worn to her cousin's wedding 3 years ago, and slacks with a blouse for job interviews she never got. None of them felt remotely adequate. At 6:55 p.m., Jennifer stood in her apartment wearing the sundress, yellow with small white flowers, fitted at the waist, falling to just above her knees, and her only pair of heels that didn't have scuffs. She'd done her makeup 3 times, her hair twice, and changed outfits 4 times before landing back on the dress. Her hands shook as she clasped her mother's necklace, a simple gold pendant, around her throat. She looked in the mirror and saw a woman pretending to be brave, hoped it would be enough. At exactly 7:01 p.m., her phone buzzed. Car is downstairs. Jennifer grabbed her purse, the good one, only slightly worn, and headed down. At the curb sat a car that made her stop breathing. Not the black Mercedes from this morning. No, this was a Lamborghini Aventador, matte white with black accents, the kind of car that cost more than her entire building. The driver's side door opened, and Park Bogum stepped out. He'd changed from this morning's suit into dark slacks and a white button-down, sleeves rolled to his forearms, revealing surprisingly muscular arms and the edge of a tattoo on his left wrist. "Miss Jennifer," he smiled, and the expression transformed his severe features into something devastating. "I hope you don't mind. I prefer to drive myself." Jennifer couldn't speak, could only stare at him, at the car, at the impossibility of this moment. Bogum's smile widened slightly, like he knew exactly the effect he was having. He walked around the car with predatory grace and opened the passenger door. "Shall we?" "This is insane," Jennifer finally managed. "You're insane. This whole situation is insane." "Probably." Bogum's eyes sparkled with amusement. "But you're here anyway. What does that make you?" "Stupid. So incredibly stupid." But she was sliding into the car even as she said it, sinking into leather seats that probably cost more than her rent. The interior smelled like expensive cologne and new car, and something darker she couldn't name. Bogum closed her door with careful precision, then rounded to the driver's side. The engine roared to life, vibration thrumming through Jennifer's entire body. She gripped the door handle as Bogum pulled smoothly into traffic, the car moving like liquid power. "Where are we going?" Her voice came out smaller than intended. "Somewhere quiet, where we can talk without interruption." He glanced at her, expression unreadable. "I owe you more than dinner, Jennifer. You gave my mother dignity when she had none. That's a debt I take seriously." "It was bus fare. $1.75. You've already paid me back like 1,000 times over with that tip this morning. Money isn't payment for what you did." His hands tightened on the steering wheel. "My mother is the most important person in my world. She was lost, confused, vulnerable, and you saw her humanity when everyone else saw an inconvenience? That kind of kindness? It's priceless." They drove in silence for several minutes, the city blurring past at speeds that should have been illegal. Jennifer watched Bogum drive, the confident way he handled the powerful car, the tension in his jaw, the way he kept glancing at her like he was still figuring her out. "Why was she alone?" Jennifer asked finally. "If she's so important, if you have all this?" She gestured vaguely at the car, at him, at everything. "Why was your mother alone at a bus stop in the rain?" Bogum's expression went dark. "She snuck out, gave her security detail the slip. She does that sometimes when the walls close in too tight." He exhaled slowly, and Jennifer heard the worry beneath his words. "She has early-stage dementia. Most days she's fine, but sometimes she gets confused, forgets where she is, why she can't just walk around like she used to." His voice cracked almost imperceptibly. "I've been tightening security, making sure she's never alone. But she hates it, says I'm making her a prisoner." Jennifer's heart twisted. "I'm sorry. That must be so hard." "It's necessary." But the word came out hollow. "My world is dangerous. The people who'd hurt me wouldn't hesitate to hurt her. So yes, I cage her in gold, and hate myself for it every single day." The vulnerability in his admission stole Jennifer's breath. This wasn't the cold criminal from the news articles. This was a son terrified of losing his mother, trapped between protection and suffocation. "She seemed like a fighter," Jennifer offered. "The way she held onto my hands, the way she made sure to give me that paper with your number. She wanted to make sure I was thanked." "She didn't give you my number." Bogum smiled faintly. "She gave you hers, with a note in Korean that said, 'This girl has a good heart. Find her. Thank her properly. Maybe marry her.'" He laughed at Jennifer's shocked expression. "My mother is not subtle, and apparently she's decided you're exactly what her disappointing son needs." Heat flooded Jennifer's cheeks. That's very presumptuous of her." "Is it?" Bogum's eyes found hers, dark and intense. "Because the moment I saw that note, the moment my mother described you, beautiful black woman with kind eyes and gentle hands, I knew I had to find you. And when I walked into that diner this morning and saw you," he trailed off, jaw clenching. "I'm not a man who believes in fate, Jennifer, but you're making me reconsider." They pulled up to a restaurant in Beverly Hills, the kind with valet parking and a waiting list measured in months. But Bogum bypassed the main entrance, driving around to a private back entrance where another valet, this one clearly security, appeared immediately. "Mr. Park, everything is prepared." Bogum handed over the keys, then came around to open Jennifer's door. She stepped out on shaking legs, acutely aware of every expensive car, every designer outfit, every way she didn't belong in this world. Breathe, Bogim murmured, his hand finding the small of her back. You look beautiful. You belong here because you're with me, and no one questions what's mine. The possessive declaration should have offended her. Instead, it sent heat pooling low in her belly. She let him guide her inside, through corridors clearly not meant for regular patrons, into a private dining room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The table was set for two, candles flickering despite the still bright evening sun. A single white rose sat at Jennifer's place setting. "This is too much," she whispered. "This is adequate." Bogum pulled out her chair, waiting until she sat before taking his own seat across from her. "I don't do anything by half measures, Jennifer. When I commit to something, I commit completely. You'll learn that about me." A server appeared, pouring wine Jennifer knew from the label cost more than her monthly rent. She took a sip to steady her nerves, the taste dark and complex on her tongue. "Tell me about yourself," Bogum said, leaning back in his chair with the ease of someone who owned every space he occupied. "Everything. I want to know you." "There's nothing to know. I work 2 jobs. I live in a studio apartment. I take care of my mother, who has MS. I'm exactly as boring as I seem." "You're lying." His eyes narrowed. "Or at least omitting. You went to college." Jennifer's head snapped up. "How do you know that?" "I had you researched." He said it without apology. "USC. 2 years majoring in hospitality management before you dropped out. Dean's List both semesters. On track for a scholarship until your mother got sick and you had to choose between her care and your education." Anger and humiliation warred in Jennifer's chest. "You had no right? I have every right to know about someone who helped my mother, who enters my life." His voice was steel wrapped in silk. "And what I found was a woman who sacrifices everything for others, who works herself to exhaustion, who gave her last dollar to a stranger and walked to work the next morning to make up the difference." He leaned forward. "Don't tell me there's nothing to know about you, Jennifer. You're the most interesting person I've met in years." The intensity of his attention was overwhelming. Jennifer took another sip of wine, needing the fortification. "What about you? What do you want me to know?" "That everything you read about me online is both true and false." Bogum swirled his wine. "Yes, I run my father's business. Yes, that business operates in gray areas. Yes, I've done things that would horrify you. But I also employ 300 people legitimately. I fund scholarships for Korean American students. I protect my community from worse predators. I'm not a good man, Jennifer, but I'm not the monster the papers make me out to be either." "Why are you telling me this? Why not just thank me and move on?" "Because my mother was right." His gaze was unwavering. "You have a good heart, and I haven't met anyone with a good heart in so long. I'd forgotten what it looked like." He reached across the table, and Jennifer found herself giving him her hand. His fingers were warm, calloused in unexpected places. "I want to see you again, after tonight. I want to take you to dinner, to shows, to every place in the city you've never been because you're too busy surviving to live. I can't afford. I'm not asking you to afford anything. I'm asking you to let me show you something different, something more." His thumb traced circles on her wrist and Jennifer's pulse jumped. "I know this is fast. I know you have every reason to say no. But Jennifer, I'm 28 years old and I've never asked a woman this before. Never wanted to, until you." The confession landed like a bomb between them. Jennifer stared at this beautiful, dangerous man who held her hand like she was precious and felt every defense she'd built crumbling. "Okay," she heard herself whisper. "Okay, yes, I'll see you again." Bogum's smile was pure triumph, devastating in its intensity. "Good. Now let's eat, and you can tell me everything those research reports left out." Dinner was a revelation. They talked for 3 hours, food appearing and disappearing while Jennifer barely noticed. Bogum asked questions that no one had ever asked her. What did she dream about? What would she do if money was no object? What made her laugh? What made her angry? And he listened, really listened, like every word mattered. In return, Jennifer learned that he played piano, hated mornings, had a weakness for terrible action movies, and carried his dead father's watch even though it had stopped at the exact moment he died. "Tell me about your mother," Jennifer said over dessert, some intricate chocolate creation she couldn't pronounce. "What was she like before she got sick?" Bogum's expression softened. "Fierce, brilliant, She came to this country knowing 4 words of English and built a life anyway. Forced my father to send me to the best schools, made sure I had every advantage she never did. When he wanted to pull me out of college to join the business, she threatened to leave him. Said I'd get my education first, become a man second, inherit blood money third. She sounds amazing. She is, which is why watching her mind slip away kills me. His jaw clenched. Some days she doesn't remember who I am, calls me by my father's name, asks where he is, why he hasn't come home, and I have to tell her again that he's dead. Watch her heart break fresh every time. Jennifer squeezed his hand. I understand. My mom has good days and bad days too. Yesterday she was herself, laughing, telling stories about when I was little. Today she didn't recognize me at first, asked if I was the new nurse. Tears pricked her eyes. It's like losing them in slow motion. Yes, the single word held oceans of grief. Exactly that. They sat in silence, hands clasped across the table, bound by shared understanding of impossible burdens. Then Bogum said quietly, I want you to meet my mother when she's having a good day. I think she'd like you. I'd like that too. Bogum drove her home, the Lamborghini purring through nighttime streets. They didn't talk much, but the silence was comfortable, charged with possibility. When they pulled up outside Jennifer's building, she couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity. This $1 million car parked in front of her rundown apartment complex. Thank you, she said, for tonight, for dinner, for seeing me. Jennifer. Bogum turned to face her fully, and she felt the full force of his attention. I'm going to be honest with you about something. I'm not good at this. At dating, at relationships, at anything that involves emotions instead of strategy. But I want to try with you. I want to see where this goes. And I need you to know that being with me means entering a complicated world. There will be danger, scrutiny, people who won't understand. Can you handle that? Jennifer thought about her life, about double shifts and bus fares and choosing between rent and food, about dreams deferred and a future that looked like more of the same stretching endlessly forward. And she thought about tonight, about being seen and heard and valued, about possibility. I don't know, she admitted, but I want to find out. Bogum leaned across the console, his hand cupping her face with devastating gentleness. May I kiss you? Jennifer's breath caught. Yes. His lips were soft, the kiss careful and seeking, like a question. Jennifer answered by threading her fingers through his hair, pulling him closer. The kiss deepened, turning hungry, desperate, full of promise and danger in equal measure. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Bogum rested his forehead against hers. I'll call you tomorrow, he murmured. We'll go somewhere. Anywhere you want. The museum, Jennifer said impulsively. The Getty. I've always wanted to go but never had time. His smile was radiant. Then the Getty it is. I'll pick you up at noon. He kissed her once more, quick and sweet, then walked her to her building. Jennifer climbed the stairs feeling like she was floating, like gravity had forgotten how to hold her down. She didn't let herself think about consequences or impossibilities. Just let herself feel happy. It had been so long since she'd felt happy. The next morning, Jennifer woke to 17 missed calls and 34 text messages. Panic seized her. Had something happened to her mother? But then she saw they were from Keisha. She called back immediately. Girl, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? Keisha's voice was shrill. Check the news. Google your name. You're all over the internet. Jennifer's blood turned to ice. With shaking hands, she pulled up Google. Jennifer Moss Park Bogum, auto-completed before she finished typing. The top result was from a celebrity gossip site. Korean Mafia air spotted with mysterious black woman. Below that, Park Bogum's new girlfriend? And who is Jennifer Moss? She clicked the first link. Photos filled the screen, her and Bogum at the restaurant, visible through windows. Her stepping out of the Lamborghini, dress fluttering in the wind, looking like she belonged. Him looking at her with unmistakable intensity. Close-ups of their hands clasped on the table. The kiss outside her building, captured by someone's telephoto lens. The article speculated wildly about her identity, her background, whether this was interracial dating scandal or shrewd business move. Jennifer's phone rang. Bogum, she answered with trembling hands. Have you seen? I've seen everything. His voice was hard, controlled fury barely leashed. Jennifer, I'm so sorry. I should have been more careful. Should have chosen somewhere more private. This is my fault. Who took these photos? Why does anyone care? Because I don't date, ever, haven't been photographed with a woman in 3 years. So you appearing? It's news. He exhaled roughly. I'm sending a security team to your building. They'll be discreet but present, just in case reporters show up. In case? Bogim, this is insane. I'm a waitress. I can't have security following me. You're with me now. That makes you a target. Steele underlaid his words. I won't let anyone hurt you, not reporters, not rivals, not anyone. So you can accept my protection gracefully, or I'll assign it anyway. Your choice. The high-handedness should have infuriated her. Instead, beneath the panic, Jennifer felt something else. Safety. For the first time in years, someone was offering to protect her instead of asking her to be strong. Okay, she whispered. Okay, thank you. I'll be there in an hour. Pack a bag. What? Why? Because you're staying with me until this dies down. I have secure buildings, private spaces where no one can get to you. Please, Jennifer, let me keep you safe. She should have said no, should have drawn boundaries, maintained independence. But Jennifer looked at the photos of herself online, exposed, vulnerable, suddenly visible to millions, and felt terror she couldn't name. Okay, I'll pack. Bogim arrived 45 minutes later in a different car, a black SUV with tinted windows and 2 security vehicles flanking it. He came upstairs himself, taking in her modest apartment with careful eyes that missed nothing. This is home, Jennifer said defensively, suddenly ashamed of the worn furniture and small space. It's perfect, Bogim countered. It's you. Neat, efficient, no wasted space. I like it. He helped her pack, insisted on carrying her bag, on checking windows and locks, on making sure she had everything she needed. His security team swept the building, confirming no reporters had followed. And then they were leaving, Jennifer taking one last look at her apartment like she might never see it again. Which was ridiculous. She'd be back in a few days once the media storm passed. This was temporary. Everything about this was temporary, except it didn't feel temporary as Bogim drove her to his penthouse in Century City, the kind of building that required key cards and retinal scans to enter. Didn't feel temporary as he showed her the guest room, larger than her entire apartment, with attached bathroom and walk-in closet and views that stretched to the ocean. Didn't feel temporary when he said, "Make yourself at home. Everything here is yours." I can't stay here long, Jennifer protested. I have work, responsibilities. My mother needs me. Your manager at Rosie's has been compensated for your absence. I've arranged a live-in nurse for your mother. Top quality, paid for the next 6 months, and the coffee shop has already replaced your shifts. He said it matter-of-factly, like rearranging someone's entire life was normal. You did what? I removed obstacles. Jennifer, you work 2 jobs because you have to, not because you want to. I can afford to give you time. Time to breathe, to figure out what you actually want instead of just surviving. So take it. Stay here where you're safe, where no one can hurt you or use you against me. Let me take care of things. The tears came without warning, hot and overwhelming. Jennifer sank onto the edge of the obscenely comfortable bed and sobbed. For relief, for terror, for the surreal impossibility of her life right now. Bogim knelt in front of her, pulling her into his arms with unexpected gentleness. I know it's overwhelming. I know this isn't what you signed up for. But Jennifer, I meant what I said yesterday. I'm all in, and that means protecting you with everything I have. I don't need protecting. I need to understand what's happening. She pulled back to look at him through tears. One act of kindness, and suddenly my entire life is different. How is that fair? How is that real? It's not fair, but it's real, and you can walk away right now if you want. I'll make sure you're safe, that the media leaves you alone, that you can go back to your life, or, his hands framed her face, or you can stay. Take a chance on something impossible. Let me show you what life could look like if you weren't always fighting to survive. Jennifer looked into his eyes, dark, intense, full of something that looked dangerously like love, and made a choice. I'll stay, for now. But Bogim, I need honesty. Complete honesty about your world, your business, everything. If I'm entering your life, I need to know what I'm entering. Done. He kissed her forehead. Tomorrow I'll show you everything. The legitimate businesses, the not-so-legitimate operations, the whole truth. And then you can decide if I'm worth the complications. He stood, pulling her up with him. But tonight, rest. You're safe here. I promise. Jennifer didn't rest. She lay in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, mind spinning with everything that had happened. 48 hours ago, she'd been a waitress with 188,847s in her account, paying bus fare for strangers. Now she was in a penthouse, protected by armed guards, being courted by a criminal kingpin who looked at her like she was treasure. It was insane. All of it. And yet, when she closed her eyes, all she could think about was Bogim's kiss. The way he'd held her face like she was fragile. The way he'd said, "Everything here is yours," like he meant more than just the apartment. She must have dozed eventually because she woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the smell of coffee. Jennifer stumbled out of bed, finding clothes laid out, new things in her size, tags still attached, a note in masculine handwriting. Took the liberty. Hope they fit. Come find me when you wake. The clothes fit perfectly. Soft jeans, a cashmere sweater in deep green, undergarments that probably cost more than her weekly grocery budget. Jennifer dressed slowly, feeling like she was putting on someone else's life. Then she followed the coffee smell to a kitchen that looked like something from a magazine. Marble countertops, professional-grade appliances, windows overlooking the city. Bogim stood at the stove, dressed casually in sweatpants and a t-shirt that did nothing to hide the lean muscle underneath. He was making breakfast. Eggs, rice, kimchi, the kind of spread that spoke of practice and care. He looked up when she entered, and his smile was soft, private, meant only for her. "Good morning. Sleep okay?" "Eventually. This is, She gestured vaguely at the food, the kitchen, him. "You cook?" "My mother insisted, said any man who couldn't feed himself was useless." He plated food with surprising grace. "Sit, eat, then I'll show you my world like I promised." Breakfast was delicious and strange, intimate in a way that felt more significant than last night's fancy dinner. They ate in comfortable silence, passing dishes, sharing space like they'd done this 1,000 times before. And when Bogim reached across to wipe a grain of rice from Jennifer's lip, the gesture so casual and domestic, she felt something in her chest crack wide open. "Why me?" she asked suddenly. "You could have anyone. Models, actresses, people who belong in your world. Why pursue this? Pursue me?" Bogim set down his chopsticks, expression serious. "Because everyone in my world wants something from me. Power, money, connection. They see Park Bogim, heir to an empire, useful piece to move on their chessboard. You saw an old woman in the rain and offered bus fare. No agenda, no calculation, just kindness." His eyes held hers. "You're the first real thing I've encountered in years. Why wouldn't I pursue that?" The honesty of it stole her breath. "I'm going to disappoint you. I'm not special. I'm just someone who was raised right." "You're wrong." He leaned forward. "You're extraordinary. You just don't know it yet because you've been too busy surviving to see yourself clearly. But I see you, Jennifer. All of you. And I'm not letting go." True to his word, Bogim spent the day showing Jennifer his world. They started with the legitimate businesses, a chain of restaurants throughout LA's Koreatown, import companies that actually imported legal goods, real estate holdings that provided housing and jobs. He introduced her to employees who greeted him with genuine warmth, who clearly respected rather than feared him. "This is what my mother wanted," he explained as they toured a community center that provided services to Korean immigrants. Legacy that helps rather than hurts. But then came the other side. The warehouse where shipments arrived with falsified manifests. The nondescript office building that housed a high-stakes gambling operation. The restaurant where business meetings happened in back rooms. And Jennifer saw men bow to Bogim with the kind of deference that came from fear. "This is what my father built," Bogim said quietly. "This is what keeps the money flowing, what protects our interests. I don't glorify it, but I won't lie about it either." Jennifer watched it all with growing unease. Not disgust, she'd grown up around enough poverty to understand that survival sometimes meant moral flexibility, but fear. Fear of the violence implicit in every interaction, the danger lurking beneath polished surfaces. "Have you killed people?" she asked bluntly as they drove between locations. Bogim didn't flinch. "Yes, in self-defense or to protect others. But yes, I've taken lives." "Does it haunt you?" "Every single one." His hands tightened on the steering wheel. "I'm not a sociopath, Jennifer. I feel every death, carry every face. But I'd do it again to protect what's mine. To protect you if it came to that." The declaration should have horrified her. Instead, Jennifer felt something primal respond, the knowledge that this dangerous man would burn the world for her. "I don't know if I can live with that," she whispered. "I know. And if you can't, I'll understand. I'll make sure you're set up. Money, housing, protection. You'll never have to worry about anything." "But Jennifer," he pulled the car over, turning to face her fully. "If you stay, if you choose this, I need you all in. Not holding back, not one foot out the door, because my enemies will see any hesitation as weakness, and I can't protect you if you're not truly with me." Jennifer looked at this beautiful, brutal man who'd entered her life like a hurricane and changed everything. Thought about her old life, the double shifts, the constant worry, the slow grinding down of dreams into dust. Thought about the alternative, safety, luxury, someone who saw her value, and thought about the cost, the blood on his hands that might one day be on hers. "I need time," she said finally. "Time to process, to think. This is too big to decide in one day." "Take all the time you need." Bogum cupped her face gently. "But know this, I'm not going anywhere. Whether you stay or go, whether this works or crashes and burns, you've already changed me, made me want something beyond duty and legacy. That doesn't just disappear." He kissed her softly, sweetly, like a promise. "So take your time. Figure out what you want. I'll be here when you decide." Jennifer spent the next week in a strange limbo. She stayed in Bogum's penthouse but maintained distance, sleeping in the guest room, eating meals separately when she could, trying to create space to think. Bogum respected her boundaries while making his presence felt. Fresh flowers appeared daily. Her favorite foods materialized in the kitchen. He left notes. Nothing pushy, just small observations. "Saw this and thought of you. Hope you're having a good day. Still here, still waiting." She visited her mother, who was having a good week thanks to the new nurse Bogum had hired. "Baby, you look different," her mother observed, eyes sharp despite the disease eating her brain. "What's happening?" Jennifer told her everything. The bus fare, the photographs, the impossible choice. Her mother listened quietly, then took Jennifer's hands. "Your daddy would want you safe, want you happy. But baby, happiness bought with someone else's blood, that's a heavy price." "I know, Mama. But what if this is my only chance? What if I say no and spend the rest of my life wondering what if?" "Then you live with that. But you live with yourself, with your conscience intact. Money can't buy peace of mind, baby. Remember that." Her mother's words echoed in Jennifer's head as she returned to the penthouse. Found Bogum in his study, working late, glasses perched on his nose in a way that made him look younger, more vulnerable. He glanced up when she entered, and the hope in his expression nearly broke her. "I can't do this," Jennifer said without preamble. "I can't be with someone whose hands are covered in blood, no matter how much I care about you. My mother raised me better than that." "I'm sorry." Bogum's face went carefully blank. "I understand." He stood, moving toward her with measured steps. "Let me arrange everything. You'll want for nothing." "I don't want your money," Jennifer interrupted. "I want my life back. My boring, safe, exhausting life, where the worst thing that happens is a rude customer. Where I don't have to wonder if the man I love will come home or end up dead in an alley." The word love hung between them, undeniable now that it was spoken. Bogum's control cracked, pain flooding his features. "You love me." "Of course I love you." Tears streamed down Jennifer's face. "I fell in love with you the moment you knelt in front of me and promised to keep me safe. But Bogum, love isn't enough. Not when your world will eat me alive." He pulled her into his arms, and Jennifer let herself be held one last time. Memorized the feel of him, the smell of his cologne, the way his heart raced against her ear. "What if I walked away," he whispered into her hair, "from all of it? The business, the empire, everything my father built. What if I chose you instead?" Jennifer pulled back to look at him. "You can't. It's not that simple." "It is exactly that simple." His eyes blazed with fierce determination. "I spent my whole life building this empire, honoring my father's legacy. And you know what? It's made me miserable, cold, dead inside except for the guilt. Then you appeared, and suddenly I felt alive again, felt human. I'm not giving that up. I'm not giving you up. Your mother would understand. She never wanted this life for me anyway." Just wanted me safe and happy. He took Jennifer's face in both hands. I'm 28 years old and I've been trapped in my father's shadow since I was 25. Maybe it's time to step out of it. Build something new, something clean, with you. You'd really leave? Walk away from everything? Jennifer searched his face for doubt, for lies, found only raw, terrifying honesty. For you? Yes. In a heartbeat. He kissed her then, desperate and consuming, like he was trying to pour everything he felt into that single moment. I love you, Jennifer Moss. I love your kindness and your strength and the way you see the world. I love that you challenge me, that you won't accept anything less than the truth. And I love you enough to become someone worthy of you. Jennifer kissed him back, tasting salt from both their tears. Made a choice that felt like stepping off a cliff with no guarantee of landing safely. Okay, yes, let's do this. Let's build something new. Together. Bogim's smile was incandescent, joy transforming his features into something beautiful and young and free. You won't regret this. I swear to you, I'll spend every day proving I'm worth this chance. The next 6 months were chaos. Bogim systematically dismantled his father's empire, selling off illegal operations, transitioning businesses to legitimate ownership, making deals with rivals to ensure a peaceful transition. Some of his father's old guard fought back. There were threats, an attempted assassination that left Bogim with a scar on his shoulder, sleepless nights when Jennifer wondered if they'd both end up dead. But Bogim kept his word. Slowly, painfully, he extracted himself from the criminal world, used his resources to build something new, a foundation that supported immigrant communities, provided job training, offered paths out of poverty. He hired Jennifer to run it, recognized her hospitality degree and natural leadership. Together, they built something that mattered. His mother, on a good day, gave them her blessing, held Jennifer's hands and said in halting English, "You saved my life. Now you save my son's. Thank you." She died 6 months after Bogim walked away from the empire, her mind finally giving out. But she died knowing her son was free, was happy, was building a legacy she could be proud of. They married on the anniversary of the night Jennifer paid bus fare for a stranger. Small ceremony, just close friends, and Jennifer's mother, who was declining but present. Bogim cried during his vows, promised to spend his life being worthy of Jennifer's kindness, to build a world where small acts of compassion rippled into impossible change. Jennifer promised to stand beside him, to see the best in him even when he couldn't see it himself, to build something beautiful from the broken pieces they'd both brought to this. 5 years later, Jennifer stood in the headquarters of the Park Moss Foundation, named for both their families, honoring both their legacies. The building buzzed with activity, job training programs, legal aid clinics, community centers serving thousands. She'd expanded her scope, using her hospitality background to create opportunities for young people like she'd been, smart but poor, full of potential but lacking pathways. Bogim appeared at her office door, holding their 2-year-old daughter who had Jennifer's eyes and Bogim's intensity. "Mommy!" Sujin squealed, reaching for Jennifer with chubby hands. Jennifer scooped her up, breathing in that perfect baby smell, feeling overwhelmed by the impossibility of her life. From Waitress to this, from $147 and desperation to wealth that meant nothing compared to the love she'd found. "What are you thinking about?" Bogim asked, pulling them both close. "That rainy night? That bus fare? How one small choice changed everything." She looked up at her husband, former criminal, current philanthropist, always the love of her life. "Do you ever regret it? Giving up your father's empire?" "Never." His answer was immediate, certain. "That empire was a cage. You set me free." He kissed her softly. "Besides, we built something better. Something that actually helps people instead of hurting them. That's the legacy I want to leave our daughter. Not fear and blood, but hope and compassion." Sujin wiggled between them, babbling in a mix of English and Korean. And Jennifer thought about the old woman at the bus stop, the $1.75 that had seemed like such a sacrifice, the kindness that had cost everything and given her back the world. "I love you," she told Bogim. "I love the man you were, the man you became, the man you're still becoming. I love all of it. And I love you." He rested his forehead against hers. "My savior, my conscience, my everything. Thank you for seeing something worth saving in me." They stood there, a family built from impossible choices, holding each other in the space they'd created together. Outside, the city hummed with life. All those strangers passing each other, never knowing when one small kindness might change absolutely everything.